Hey there viewers, thank you for tuning into Supermariodiagnostics once again. Today we are working on a 2015 Mercedes Benz S63 AMG with a 5.5 liter engine in it. The issue that it's having is an alternator charging issue. In this video we will be covering several disassemblies because to take out the alternator we also have to take off the fan assembly and also the radiator. So if you're looking on how to remove any of these three components, be sure to continue watching. This is a beautiful car, very expensive, and the risks are high when it comes to these kinds of jobs because of the value that these cars have. If you have any doubt whatsoever as to whether you have the ability to do this job to the end after watching this video, please consider hiring a professional to complete the job for you. There's a reason why they are professionals. They take a lot of training, they do this all the time, they see it every single day. And if you're wondering why you're paying a certain amount to get this job done, well, you may want to continue watching this video because it's pretty involved. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into the job. So the first thing I did was remove the panels from underneath the vehicle and inspected everything just to make sure there was nothing out of place or anything that may have caused premature failure of this alternator. And lo and behold, I found that it was drenched in oil, and I believe that the root cause of the alternator failure is that the valve covers are leaking and oil is dripping down to the alternator and causing it to fail. We did order a Mercedes Benz alternator, and we have told the customer of this issue and that if we install this alternator without fixing the valve cover gasket leak, they may have an issue down the road. And up until this point, we only have approval for the alternator. They may change their minds and do the valve cover, but whether they do approve that or not, we're going to go ahead and film the alternator portion of this job and not the valve cover repair. So to start, we opened up the trunk and we emptied its contents, and we also removed this top tray that is right on the upper side of the trunk. Once that's out of the way, you can remove the panel. The panel that is in front of the battery is held down by two clips. Remove those clips, remove the panel. We're going to go ahead and disconnect our negative terminal. Let's go ahead and remove the belt. We're going to need a 14mm socket, and we're going to turn counterclockwise. We really don't need to remove the belt completely, only loosen it from the alternator alone. The first thing I want to do is lower this rack and pinion. We're going to remove the yoke, or I guess the steering shaft, from the rack, make any disconnections that we need to make in order to lower this thing, and then see if we can get more access. There's our steering shaft that we're going to disconnect. We're going to use a 13mm for that. And of course there's a bolt on the back side. Obviously this plastic right here keeps the position. You're going to want to make a mark. I'm not too worried that this will move. You have to completely remove the plastic in order for this to shift. As long as you're careful, you should have no problems. And I like to put this back how it was, obviously not tightened, but just to not lose anything. Go ahead and make some disconnections here. These are very thin wires, looks like they are communication wires. And we got a safety tab right here that we need to pull back. We have a couple of E-Torques here. I'm just gonna get these cables out of the way. And it's gonna take E14 and with the 16mm held down in the back. We also have these E-Torques on the sides. They are E12s and they have a 13mm nut on the back of them. And on the driver's side, there is nothing to hold down yourself in the back of this one. It actually... Now for my next trick, these two bolts are held up by nuts above the subframe, and to get those off you're going to need one of these bad boys, which I had to borrow from my brother because I really never needed one of these. And I don't have the metric equivalent, but I have an 11/16 thanks to my brother. And that's what we're going to use to hold down the nut that's on top of the rack on this one. Mercedes, in their infinite genius, thought it would be a good idea. So let's see if we could get you guys a good shot of that. Let's go ahead and put that 11/16 end in here between the compressor and the subframe. And you can feel the nut with your finger on this side. But on the passenger side, it's going to be the real test of patience. I don't have the specific one that they want. Mercedes apparently, might be a snap-on. I got some regular old branches here. You always hear about how mechanics don't like or hate engineers. I hate over-engineering. Well done. They make it their life's mission to do this to us. I tell you. Say what you want about Snap-on, but this is the one that pulled it through. The one that my brother gave me, just, I don't know what it was, the angle or the depth. But if you want the part number, there it is. 11/16. I don't know that that's the right size necessarily, but I don't know if Snap-on is like just a lucky company, but their hand tools always get it right sometimes. Most of the time. Went ahead and strapped up the rack to not put too much tension against the tie rods. We're gonna remove this right here, remove the fan, the oil cooler from the fan, and go from there. Oh, we got that coolant draining. Let's go ahead and start removing some other stuff like the alternator bolts. Those are E-Torx as well, E12s. There's two of them, one way down here and one up on the top of the alternator. Before I attempt to remove the top bolt of the alternator, I'm going to remove this coolant hose to make more room. It's going to have to come off anyway if I want to get the alternator out. We're also removing the lower radiator hose at the radiator. Now we can go ahead and remove this bolt as well. Let's go ahead and remove the electrical connector from the back of the alternator. There we go. Since we are taking off the radiator as well, there are two screws down here that we're going to have to remove. They're on the sides. And carefully remove these intake tubes. Got another screw down here that we need to remove. That is a T20, by the way. We also got this electrical connector over here for the fan. Pull back the safety tab. The oil cooler has a tab that you're gonna have to lift upwards. It's gonna be very hard to see from there. And the oil cooler is now removed. Now we've got several lines to disconnect. We've got that one right there, this top one right here, and we got the upper coolant hose right here. We're gonna disconnect that. Looks like the customer just won themselves a new hose, courtesy of Supermariodiagnostics. Alright, so we got the upper hose off. Let's go ahead and remove this fan. We got a tab over here to the left, another tab to the right. And I'm not gonna grab the blade itself. I'm going over the blade and into the plastic housing, or the shroud, I guess you could call it. But before we actually remove it, let's go ahead and take this lining off. Try to get this thing out in one piece. My back problems are not helping me right now. There we go. Alright, so we're about to remove the radiator, but before we do that, I would like to remove this hose right here to aid in putting the cooler, oil cooler, or the ATF cooler forward enough to prevent any damage. Alright, so the idea is to move this hose to the side and get that oil cooler as rearward and to the side as possible. So we're going to scoot the radiator forward a bit from the support frame, and the top parts are locked in. There's a specific name for that kind of lock, but I can't recall. But the idea is we're going to move that radiator up forward as much as possible until it unlocks from the top. So we're going to go forward and downward. Be very careful with that oil cooler. Make sure it doesn't get snagged. And that cooler just does not stop coming out. Watch out for the AC line. Take your time. This AC line is always going to be getting in the way, so you constantly have to readjust it. We're almost there. And the oil cooler wants to get in the way again, so we're going to get that out of the way. And the radiator is out. Let's go ahead and remove these transmission line bolts. And there's another one right here on the driver's side. go ahead and remove this radiator hose. I'm sorry, not this radiator hose. This is the hose that I released earlier to make room for the oil cooler. It is in front of our alternator. It's kind of in the way, so I want to get it out of there. Let's go ahead and get this alternator off. I still haven't removed the main power cable. That's okay. We're gonna go ahead and do that as well. See if we can get this enough room to get this thing out of here. Just gonna move this line a little down. I may need to grab something to keep it down. Now might be a good time to let go of that power wire. But it is facing the other way. Let's see how much slack I could get out of this thing. Alright, so I'm gonna let go of this so we can get more slack out of this power wire. And it wraps around another, like, looks like an oil supply hose or something. I can't remember off the top of my head. That is incredible the amount of things that they do. Incredible. The hurdles we have to jump just to do what's supposed to be a simple job. That's what comes with the territory. So this must be one of the tightest ones I've done so far. Go ahead and get this thing out of here finally. Be super careful with that condenser, because if you bump into it and damage it, you just bought yourself a new condenser. Oh, check this out. It is stiff, extremely stiff. So we've got a brand new alternator. Everything looks like an exact match on this side. And it is nice and smooth. And our clutch works. This has a one-way clutch. For those of you who don't know, always check your alternators. Because if it's supposed to have a one-way clutch, like right here, I'm gonna hold the inner part of it. And it's still, you can still rotate the pulley in one direction. But it won't, it will lock on the other direction. That's the one-way clutch. So you always do that quick little test right there. If you put one that doesn't belong in that car, you are going to end up with problems. You can see direction of rotation right here. Always do that test right there. And then always make sure that it's nice and smooth. This one is not nice and smooth. You guys can look inside here. It doesn't even move. The pulley's good. I mean, the one-way clutch is good, but in the direction of rotation, it is just not going. Let's go ahead and reinstall this alternator carefully. And we're not going to completely install it without first attaching that battery positive cable. That's going to be our first step. Okay, so we are somewhat situated. Let's get the cable in place and tighten it down before we put anything back together. And let's tighten this sucker down. Let's go ahead and put a bolt in here to kind of keep it situated. Let's go ahead and put our top bolt in as well. Since we have everything out in the open, no radiator in the way, might be just easiest to put the belt on now. So I already routed that belt where it should go, and the belt is on. Not forget to put this cooling line back, and we've got our hold down in hand. Let's go ahead and put that back on. While the radiator's out, might as well get this rack and pinion back up. It'll give us the space, a little bit easier space to put those wrenches back in place and whatnot. Let's go ahead and reconnect our connections here. See if we could get our 11/16 over here. Here comes the fun part. Wow, got lucky on that one. Let's go ahead and reconnect our rack and pinion to our steering column. And this is something I typically don't like to leave up to a impact wrench. I'd rather know that I'm putting it tight by hand. Let's go ahead and move it a bit. Go ahead and mount this radiator back up carefully. go ahead and reinstall this auxiliary turbo line. We're gonna have to grease that up a little bit. That O-ring is still good. A lot of people will disagree with my policy. My policy is if the O-ring is still pliable, it's not overheated, and it seals, then I will reuse them. Yep, I'll reuse them. Because a lot of times you won't get those seals unless you get the whole hose. That's not my excuse or anything, but that's my main reason. And it's if your policy is to replace the seals or hoses at all times, every time, that's fine with me. But with the amount of effort that I'm having to put these seals back in, these hoses, I have no doubts as to their sealing capability. And I always pressure test after repairs, so there's that as well. And I might be blocking you guys' views, so I do apologize for that, but there's no easy way to film this one. You guys won't be able to see that, but I pretty much hold the clamp at the other end so that I don't pinch myself once this thing releases. We're also gonna reinstall our lower coolant hose. And my clamp isn't seated right. Always pull before releasing the vehicle. Always pull before you continue moving on with the job. Because stuff like that happens where the clamp isn't in the right position. That should be right there, because it should snap in. And there we go. Same thing applies for this one. I did have to apply some grease on this one because the O-ring was pretty tight. And like I said, always give it a tug, but also do a visual. You guys see that it came up a little. Not that it would have released or anything, but always do a visual as well. Man, what a difficult shot to get. Let's not forget this clip right here. That wraps around our auxiliary water pump hose that we just installed. So that is what you were supposed to be seeing when your radiator is fully seated. If you see this all loose, you didn't do it right. Same thing goes on the other side. Everything's nice and tight on there. Before we connect anything at all, let's go ahead and put this fan on. Fan is finally in. Let's go ahead and put this oil cooler in its place. There we go. Let's go ahead and put this clip back on. And finally, grand prize, new hose to our lucky winner. Let's go ahead and put these bad boys back on. They are directional, by the way. Don't ask me how I know. go ahead and reinstall our battery. Installing these caps because I did have a maintainer on this battery during service. Gonna put our clips here. There's 2 holes we gotta line up at the back. If you were wondering what I'm doing, I have a video on how to do this vacuum fill. Gonna leave that there for about 10 minutes. Start up the car and make sure this thing is charging. Vehicle is off right now. It is at 13.21. Let's go ahead and start up the vehicle. Nice. Don't forget to rinse and repeat for the low temp side cooling system as well. I think that just about concludes this video. There are some things that we're going to continue doing. I'm going to leave the pressure tester on for about another 10 minutes. Take it on a test drive with the heater on, all that good stuff. Make sure it gets to full operating temp. Confirm that it can regulate its own temperature. Make sure it doesn't overheat. Come back, check for leaks. Put the panels back on and let it cool down completely before I do a final top off of the cooling system. That will be for tomorrow. It is the end of the day today, almost. And then finally release the vehicle. And that is a job done. Thank you all for taking the time to watch this video. I appreciate you all for watching. And be sure to leave a comment if you have any questions. Hit like. Consider subscribing. There may be videos more like this. I may do more first-person, hands-free type videos. So stay tuned for that kind of stuff. I'm hoping to get, also I'm waiting for parts and stuff, and waiting to get a little Tesla video going on there. But for now, this will do. Thank you all again, and I'll catch you all next time.